Myself Padmaja, Associate Professor, Department of CSE, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. Today we are going to discuss about user-defined exceptions in Python. So, first of all, what is a user-defined exception? Now, before going for how to write our own exception, first see what are the built-in exceptions available in Python. So, this list gives you the built-in exceptions in Python. So, there are several built-in or predefined exceptions in Python, and Python automatically recognizes these exceptions and handles them appropriately. So, you can observe here, exception is the base class for all the exceptions, and there are other built-in exceptions like standard error, then arithmetic error, system exit, overflow error, floating point error, zero division error, and so on. So the list goes on. So this list continues like this: end of the file error, import error, lookup error, index error, and all these are the built-in exceptions, and the Python handles these exceptions automatically. But if you want to create your own exception, that is called custom exception or user-defined exception, then how to do it in Python? Let us learn today. Now, first of all, what is user-defined exception? Now, Python allows the programmers to create their own exceptions by creating a new exception class. Now, the new exception class is derived from the base class exception, which is already predefined in Python. So, if you want to create your own exception class, then the new exception class must be derived from the base class, which is exception base class, which is automatically or which is already built in Python. Now, the init method of the exception class has been overridden by the derived class. The customized exception is also known as the custom exception concept in Python. Now, let us see how to write our own exception, or that is custom exception in Python. Now, this program shows you how to create a user-defined exception. So here we are creating an exception that is called myError. So this is called a derived class, and it has to derive from the base class that is called exception. This is called the base class, which is already inbuilt in Python. So the superclass is exception or base class is exception, and myError is the derived class. Now here what we are doing, we are overriding the init method of the base class. So here we are writing our own constructor init. So this constructor is, we are initializing a value. So here self.value, this is our instance variable. Now we are taking the built-in attribute str to represent or to display the value. So you can see that str is a built-in method over here, and we are using the representation to represent the value of the variable. So this, after defining the class, we want to raise the exception. So we have to write the code within try and except block. So try raise myError. So whenever this class gets executed, and if there is any mistake in this, then the exception will be raised. So you are passing a value. So 3 into 6. So you are here, the value is equal to 6 you are passing. And this value will be initialized using the init method, and then it will be displayed. So we are writing that if there is any error that is raised by this particular class, then it has to be handled. So we have written the except block to handle that error. Except myError as E. We have renamed myError as E, and we are writing that if there is an exception, that must be raised and it must be handled properly. So a new exception has occurred, that is E.value. So in this program, we are seeing that how to raise an exception and how to handle it. So you can see here, when you run this program, the value will be stored and an exception will be raised. So that will be handled. The exception handle block will be executed, and the new exception with the value will be displayed on the screen. Now, let us continue more on the user-defined exception. Like your runtime error is a class, and there is a concept of standard exception which is raised when the generated error doesn't fall into any category. Now, we will see one program where the runtime error works as a base class and the network error works as a derived class. Let us see how to handle your network errors. So here we have written one class for network error which will be derived from the base class runtime error. So this runtime error is a base class which is already inbuilt in Python, and we have defined our one derived class that is called network error, which derives from the base class runtime error. And we are passing one argument, and that argument is initialized in the init method. Let us see how it works. So we are writing our code in the try and except block. So in the try block, we are raising one exception. So if there is a network error, then the argument error is passed over here, and that should be printed. So whenever there is a network error, the exception should be raised. So if there is an exception, then we will print that argument that is called error. So when you run this program, then you will get the output as error here. Okay, this is the way we can write our own user-defined exceptions. Now, the custom exception can also be written using the standard keyword that is called the asset statement. So, what is an asset statement and how it is used? Let us see first. So, the asset statement is a conditional error handling keyword that allows you to check a specific criteria to be met. So, whenever you do not met with a specific criteria, then the assertion error will be thrown. Now, how this assertion error will be thrown, let us see this first. Now, for example, in this program, we have defined a function called to read the input age, and age is the argument we are passing over here. And if the age of the person is first converted into integer, and if the age is greater than 18, okay, then if the age is greater than 18, then no problem. If the age is less than 18 or any other value which is not a valid age value, then it will throw error. So in the except block, we are writing the value error. If you are giving a value which is not a valid value, then it will generate the value error. That is, here if you are passing a value for age and it is converting into integer, then it is checking that whether it is greater than 18 or not. So the value error says that it cannot convert into integer if you are passing other than an integer. Okay. Now, otherwise the age will be written successfully. So how assertion error will be generated? Let us see through the different test cases. For example, first of all, if I am passing one string, 23 is a string, I am passing to the input age function. So this will print. Why? Because the age 23 will be converted here into integer 23. So int of 23 will convert this into integer 23, and 23 is greater than 18. So it will print. Okay. Now, whenever you are passing an age 25, then integer of 25 is 25 only. So 25 is greater than 18. So there is no error. Now, whenever you will pass nothing, then what will happen? That cannot be converted into integer. Nothing is a string that you are passing over here. Okay. So this will raise an value error. Okay. Which is handled over here. So if there is a value error, we have written the value error that cannot convert into integer. But whenever you are passing the input is 18 as a string. So here the int of 18 is converted into integer. So 18 is greater than 18. It is false. So this will raise an assertion error and the program will stop. Okay. So if the condition is met over here, then assertion error will not be generated. Otherwise, if you are not providing an integer or a proper number to check the age, then also value error is generated over here. But the assertion error will be generated when the condition is not met. So here we have checked, whenever you are passing nothing, then value error is raised. But whenever you are passing the age 18 or below 18 anything, then the condition what you have written, that the integer of age should be greater than 18. That condition has not been met. If the condition has not met, then it has raised one assertion error. So this way, custom exceptions can be written using the asset statements. Thank you. In this video, we have learned how to write our own user-defined exceptions for various programs or applications. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.